apparently we do this pretty okay, and people are okay with coming on our podcast.
Important people.
Real people, not like people who run certain Facebook groups who said the only way we could post in their group is if we had them on the podcast. Fuck you, Ron. Oh, sorry. But I'll say that one more time. Fuck you, Ron. You'll never be on this podcast until I'm dead, and then it's up to Chap.
And I don't know you, but you ain't coming on with me either.
Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, episode 105. My name is Eddie Rivkin. I'm joined, as always, by Chris Chapman of Fox Sports Las Vegas and the Vegas Golden Knights pre- and post-game show. Thankfully, he decided not to bring his neck beard to this episode. So I'm happy I don't have to look at that thing for, this whole hour. This episode, like all the others, is brought to you by the Las Vegas Advisor at www.lasvegasadvisor.com, by my good friend Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net, and by Joe and Boris over at Marathon Law Group at marathonlawgroup.com. Well, Chap, it's Wednesday afternoon. Winter is back in Vegas.
Yeah, what the fuck is this?
Fucking cold outside. I was looking for the casual sweats, had to put the fleece back on. But we've got news.
Yes, we do.
We have important breaking news, and it almost relates to my little rant about our friend Mr. Lilleberg from the last episode.
You fucking cuck.
Tomas Hertl, back at practice today, non-contact jersey. Maybe that giant man was just stronger than the boards, right? Because he plowed into the boards and we went down that rabbit hole of, oh shit, what are we going to do? Leading scorer, leading power play guy, leading this, leading that. But if the Golden Knights hold true to form, which they pretty well that's one of the things we can predict about them.
Yes.
When somebody shows up in a contact jersey, that usually means they're about 10 days out.
Mm-hmm.
So without having the schedule open in front of me,
that's April 12th.
It's probably tracking for the last home game of the year
against Nashville,
against the little man in the Nashville Predators. Which, listen, that's just fucking fantastic news. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah. And I read this morning, and Pierre LeBrun, who is about as well connected in this league when it comes to having sources and information. The guy's amazing. And I read this morning, and I sent you the little quote,
right.
And it was basically going through playoff teams and if such and such or when they're expected back. And Kaprizov, they're expecting him back, and there's rumor that maybe Landeskog, believe that or not,
again,
but I guess a little bit better. And Hertl was one of the guys listed, and LeBrun's quote was that they basically, and I'm going to paraphrase, so it's not his quote, but I'm going to paraphrase, that the Golden Knights expected him to be ready for game one of the playoffs, and he's back on the ice practicing. By the way, today's practice over at T-Mobile Picture Day. Today.
Oh, that's right, Picture Day.
I like to go to those practices because it's always kind of cool to sit in the seats along the glass and watch the team practice. I used to go to some of when they would have other teams come in and practice at T-Mobile, and I used to do a pregame interview for the pregame show. Sometimes I would get an opposing player, maybe a former Knight or whatever, and I would go watch practice at T-Mobile, and that was always fun. But the Golden Knights practice at T-Mobile today. We saw Tomas Hertl at T-Mobile Arena last night, leaving the rink with.
Had to be his brother.
So I got confirmation that is his brother, who is an agent. Imagine you go into now. Tomas Hertl he's an oak tree. Like he's a He's a solid fucking guy.
His brother made him look like
small. He made him look small.
Like, who's the wafiest Golden Knight? Probably Dorofeyev, right?
I mean,
his brother is fucking gigantic.
His brother was basically Ovechkin, and
he was Brendan Brisson.
Yeah. Hertl was Peyton Krebs or Brendan Brisson.
Remember, we were standing in the tunnel, and he was way down by the. It was way down by the far end.
You're like, oh, is that Hertl?
I think that's Hertl. And he starts walking by.
The other Hertl.
It's the bigger.
Now, I don't know what his brother's name is, but
King Kong.
Yeah, King Kong is right. He played apparently professionally in the Czech Republic. So I'm thinking, imagine that fucking guy making a run at you. No, thank you.
I looked at him walking through the back tunnel last night, and the first thing that came to mind, Dustin Byfuglien.
This guy was a monster. And he's an agent. Like, you walk into negotiations with that guy and he's fucking hulking over you. No, I don't want to be on the other end of that table.
So if they hold to form, and they're not going to hold them out to the first game of the playoffs.
No, they want them to get a little.
They are going to get the lineup in before game one of the playoffs. Last year against Dallas, they didn't. That lineup that they iced in game one against Dallas, the first time all season that they had all played together.
Yeah, because Stone couldn't go until the playoffs.
Right.
And Hertl had played a handful of games coming back from his injury.
So this time, it's not going to, they can't. Now, the question mark is still Pietrangelo. They're still playing cat and mouse with what it is or what it might not be.
Well, Bruce said yesterday that Pietrangelo was a maintenance day, but he expected him back today. So we'll see if that holds true. Obviously, depending on what it is, there might be a setback. Who knows? But I think, it doesn't sound like they're too concerned about Pietrangelo.
No, they sounded almost not concerned about last night's game.
Well, they played like it, that's for sure.
Well, they played 20 minutes like it. That's for sure. They were solid in the first and the third, and they
actually looked really good in the third. And they were really unlucky not to tie that game.
But we'll get there. The headline is Tomas Hertl is clearly not hurt as bad as the naysayers, doom and gloomers, the sky is falling.
Yeah, this was not Jack Hughes.
Yeah.
And thank fuck for that.
Yeah, I mean, so they get if he shows up, we'll just play the theoretical game. He shows up the 12th against Nashville. That gives him the Vancouver and Calgary back-to-back to close the season on the road.
And then you come back on what we think is going to be.
It has to be.
Yeah, the only logical date that makes sense is Easter Sunday. And our friend Paul De Los Santos
from NHL.com,
he is also a he is a wrestling aficionado.
Yes.
And he understands the intricacies of setting up the set for Monday Night Raw and whatever they're doing there on Saturday night. He understands breaking all that down and re-putting it back together.
Right.
And he says that it's probably going to be about a 12 to 14 hour job to take it down and set the rink up for hockey. And it's going to be about as long to take the rink from hockey and set it back up for Monday Night Raw.
And then they have to do it again after Monday Night Raw because they have to go Sunday, Tuesday.
Right. And so the arena is booked on Saturday, the 19th, because there's wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
As well. So, like, I didn't, and I guess because I'm not a wrestling fan, like, I will casually flip through television, and I went to SummerSlam when it was here, and I knew, like, 3 of the guys, and Goldberg, everybody hates him anyway. Like, I knew who Goldberg was, and I knew who Sheamus was, because he's a big Liverpool fan. Other than that, I didn't know any of these fucking guys. John Cena, who got his ass kicked. But, so, WrestleMania is at Allegiant Stadium.
Right.
It is a 2-day event.
Right, but the satellite shows are everywhere around town.
They have shit downtown. Paul was telling me last night there's some kind of midget wrestling.
Yes, I'm in.
Which when I lived in the Philippines,
1,000%.
when I lived in the Philippines, there was a bar called Ringside, and they had on top of bikini boxing, they had midget boxing.
Are we gonna get in
And
trouble for saying that word?
I mean, that's how it was advertised. I mean, I don't know,
Right.
but
I don't care. But
so they would, the way it was set up, you would go to the bar and it was a pretty rowdy place in the heart of Burgos. And anyone who's familiar, who may listen to the show, who's ever been to Makati, I don't need to explain to you what Burgos is, but it's a pretty lively area. And they have this bar ringside, and you go in and they have a boxing ring set up, and they have girls walking around in bikinis who will box. And then they have, I'll say, for political correctness, little people. And they box too. But it's a scam because they find the stupid white guy, in which case me, and all my friends were Filipino, so I was hanging out with locals, and they have you referee the fight. And the scam of it is, in order to referee the fight, you have to buy shots for the fighters.
is there video of this?
There might be. You know what? I will have to.
Yes, I demand.
I will search long
video
and hard
of you refereeing midgets.
Yeah, I will look long and hard. It may be somewhere. Unfortunately, my ex-girlfriend does not talk to me anymore. So well, I don't think that's unfortunate. But anyway, so there's one of those events going on somewhere downtown, and Paul said, "Oh, you should check it out. You probably like it." I don't know if that's like a dig at my sick sense of humor or what, but and then they have events, because we've gone off on this tangent. Events at T-Mobile, 3 of them.
Yeah. All right. Enough wrestling talk.
Yes.
So I don't know how we flew off.
Well, game 1 is going to be Sunday.
Easter Sunday, probably noon.
Probably early. And apparently he was looking at the rink in Winnipeg. And it sounds like they're going to be playing on Sunday as well, because I guess they've got stuff going on there on Saturday night too. So it sounds like Vegas and the Jets will both start on Sunday. And he's thinking the Jets will play the later game and the Golden Knights will play an earlier game that Easter Sunday. Noon, that's early. Listen, I don't give a shit. For me, I get in, get out, I'm home before all the chaos around Allegiant starts. Because
we'll see.
I got to go past there to get home. I don't want to be dealing with that shit. So noon is fine for me.
So let's pivot and not talk about midgets anymore.
Or bars in the Philippines.
We talked in 104 that they needed 6 points on the road trip.
They got 6 points on the road trip.
They made the statement game. They smacked Minnesota pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? And then they did what they needed to do in the back-to-back.
Yeah, they didn't play great in either of those games, but you know, it's funny being part of the VGK Insider Show, and I work for the flagship station, and I read the texts and I hear the calls. People were complaining about winning. And it's like, at this time of year, I don't give a fuck if they play the worst game of the season. If they get 2 points, that's all that matters. Like, yeah, you want to play up to your competition. They didn't play great against the Blackhawks. They still walked away with 2 points. They didn't play great against the Predators. They still walked away with 2 points.
They got the job done.
I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit how they're winning. Look, in the playoffs, you're not getting fucking style points. You don't get style points in the regular season. Now, I would say that there's parts of the season you want your game to be on point. But
let's talk about that. 8 games to go, right? 74 and 8's 82.
Yeah.
All year we talk about finding the game, the Golden Knights finding their game,
right?
Finding their game. 6-1 in their last 7. I feel like they have a tiny little bit, but this is what we saw in that 6-game winning streak. That's what we're going with. That's the Golden Knight they're gonna be a wagon.
Well, the game against the Bruins.
Right.
I don't remember who else they beat on that. Toronto, right? Like those were really good games. They played good games. And they have the Avalanche coming up next week
in Denver.
And I expect that to be a fantastic regular season game between 2 really good teams.
But it might not mean anything.
Well, I think it'll mean something for Colorado.
Well, that's the thing. If Vegas gets to that Colorado game, they might. I mean, if they would have won last night, they would have locked out Edmonton.
Yeah,
Edmonton from winning the division.
Yeah. And as it is, the Oilers basically need to run the table, and the Golden Knights need to play below 500.
Right. The Oilers are 7 back. The Kings are 5 back. Everybody's got the same amount of games, so there's no more of that game in hand bullshit. But the game might not really mean too much. But I thought last night's game, I thought the whole game was going to be like the third period. Right.
I did too.
And we're sitting there, and for those of you who are new viewers to the podcast, we sit next to each other in the press box at the home games, and we're like, when's the hockey game going to break out?
Yeah, even the first period where the Golden Knights played well.
They played well, but
it was not a good or it wasn't what we thought it was supposed to be when right.
I mean, yeah, McDavid wasn't in the lineup. Ekholm wasn't in the lineup. Yeah, Skinner wasn't in the lineup, but still, these
there
two
was
teams,
no Hertl for Vegas, no
right.
Pietrangelo. So.
I mean, but these teams genuinely don't like each other.
Yeah, there's some dislike
right?
between them.
And I was listening to the post-game show, and they were like, the Vegas dominated the first period. I'm like, no,
they didn't dominate.
Boredom dominated the first period. They outshot them 10-4.
Not exactly
right, but
yeah.
They certainly outchanced them. They out everything them.
And listen, Calvin Pickard played pretty good in the first. He played
fine.
Yeah,
but
it's not like the Golden Knights had like 18 shots in that first period.
I just thought that whole game. I just thought it was going to be juiced up from the opening puck drop.
Well,
and it really wasn't.
I was talking to one of the writers for Edmonton, and I said to him, I said. It's been a while since we've seen these guys. I mean, remember the last time these two teams played in Vegas was that really goofy,
the 1-0
historical only time in NHL history a game has ended 1-0 with no penalties and no assists.
Right.
And I think it was only like the fourth or fifth physical game in NHL history that ended 1-0 with 0 penalties. But I asked him, I said, is this how this team's playing now? Where they just kind of slog it up and they just don't really go up and down. And he goes, listen, in order to beat the Golden Knights, you can't get into an up and down game with them. And when you're missing McDavid and you're missing Ekholm, who's their best defender, it's like, you're not going to win a game against Vegas where you're going up and down the ice. He's like, this was the only chance the Oilers, given the cards that they had to win this game. And the Oilers certainly didn't play great.
No.
In fact, I think that's one where Chris Knobloch would say we were probably outplayed outside of
20 minutes in the middle period.
And listen, I don't even know if you could look at that because it was 0-0 for most of that period. And it wasn't until there was a bullshit penalty called on Brady McNabb.
But territorially, the second period, they were in trouble.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of that time, a lot of second period defending.
And they set the tone early in that second period when Jake Wallman comes out and scores, 19, 20 seconds into the second period. And all of a sudden, everything you worked for in the first period is
flushed,
gone. So I think, honestly, watching these two teams play, the Golden Knights are better than the Edmonton Oilers. And
I agree. I said that since the beginning.
I think there are, I know Pickard played an admirable game last night. It's going to be Stuart Skinner in the playoffs. I don't think he's anything.
If he's healthy.
I don't think he's anything special.
It's not anything special.
McDavid will be fine. I would imagine he'll be playing in the playoffs, but
he's on the trip and skating with the team.
Yeah.
So
and Evander Kane was rumored to have been on the trip as well. So the Oilers going forward, they're going to be a pain in the ass. But I think based on, and it sounds crazy, but based on what I've seen this year with my own eyes, I think this is the year the LA Kings knock out the Edmonton Oilers. I think the last 4 years come to a halt, and the Kings, I think pretty easily will beat the Edmonton Oilers. I just don't think they're they're a good team. I don't think they're a Stanley Cup contending team. The Kings are the one who scare the shit out of me. I do not. I don't like that matchup for Vegas.
Does your opinion change any if if Edmonton leapfrogs LA and has home ice in this series?
Yes, it would, because I think the Kings at home,
they're pretty devastating.
I think they're the best team in the league at home.
They're one of the top three.
They're
for sure.
really good at home,
right?
But I think the pressure of not having to steal a game in Edmonton helps a lot for them. I think psychologically it helps a lot. And like I said, I think that if they played 7 games on neutral ice, I like the Kings. If they play a 7-game series and the Kings have home ice, I think the Kings not only will hold serve at home, I think they actually win a game in Edmonton. If they have to go to Edmonton, I think that changes the dynamic a little bit. I still think they could win that series, but the Oilers are a team that they also feed off their home crowd. And for Vegas, I think you've put yourself in a good position to where you're not going to play either of those teams in the first round.
Assuming they close it out.
It would take a lot. But the Kings have home games, and Vegas has some tough games coming up. Those back-to-back. Listen, Vancouver is probably not playing for shit.
Neither is Calgary.
Calgary, I think, in their mind, they still feel I don't know how realistic it is. But
I think it's mathematical, but not
I think we're pretty much set. The only question is it going to be the Wild or the Blues, who are the second wild card and who's the first wild card? And as it stands, I think St. Louis is probably, they've won 10 in a row. And the Wild they're going to get Kaprizov back.
Yep. Soon, I think.
And that's a huge boost for that team. But the goalie play has not been great for them. They've really been hurt by the injury bug.
Yes.
Joel Eriksson-Ek is one of the most underrated players in the league. No one talks about him because he plays for the Wild, and no one watches the Wild outside of Minnesota.
Right.
And he's a good player. So missing him, missing Kaprizov, that's some tough sledding. And they've navigated, but they were in the upper echelon early, but the injuries have caught up to them and they've slid back. I don't know how much better they'll be with Kaprizov, because I just don't think they're as good as the other 3 teams in that division. And St. Louis, I don't think the coaching change. They're playing really good hockey. Every time the Golden Knights and Blues get together.
And Binnington's keeping him in every game.
He's a wild card, but man, Binnington has been good since that final game of the Four Nations.
Yep, he has.
I mean, I shit all over that guy, and I stopped. I told Ryan on the Insider Show the day after Canada beat the U.S. in that Four Nations, I said, you know what? I'm done doubting this guy, because every time I say he can't do it, he fucking makes me shut my mouth. And he's the reason they won that game. He's the reason St. Louis won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, for sure.
He is, for all the shit he does on the ice, the Brad Marchand-esque,
right,
funny stuff.
The asshole behavior. That's what you're trying to say.
He is as big time as a goalie as it gets in big moments. And I would prefer to see the Wild.
He's a bigger big time goalie than the Vezina Trophy winner.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Listen, I would never say that Hellebuck is a better, or I would never say Binnington is a better goalie than Connor Hellebuck. I think I'd lose my credential if I made that comment. But
better playoff goalie.
In a game 7,
he's a better playoff goalie.
Must-win game, I want Jordan Binnington.
Until
prove it otherwise.
Until Hellebuck proves otherwise, for sure.
And it's not a knock on Hellebuck. I mean, he's fucking amazing. But you got to win in the playoffs. And maybe playing 60-plus games a year is not
the formula.
Not in 2025, it's not. Maybe in 1995 when Martin Brodeur was playing basically 70 games a year for the Devils.
Nuts.
It's incredible.
We'll be right back after a word from Dr. John Pierce at Ageless Forever. I'm here with Dr. John Pierce. We're talking about all the different treatments and all the things that he takes care of here at agelessforever.net. The big thing men are seeing mostly on television these days is low T. Dr. Pierce is going to tell you the compelling reason why testosterone therapy treatment here at Ageless Forever is significantly better. Doc?
We do testosterone therapy with a little more nuance. The guidelines kind of suggested if your testosterone level is above 300, that you shouldn't get testosterone therapy. And I got a lot of men that come to me that are miserable. They have a lot of symptoms of low testosterone and their level's just a little bit above 300, and we treat them and they feel amazingly better. Their quality of life is better, their home life is better, their work life is better. So, that's the kind of thing that I'm looking to do, is improve people's lives. Come on down, we can test you, and then we can talk about the different options.
I've been on it now for probably pretty close to a year. I didn't realize how bad I felt until I started feeling good. I don't know if that resonates with everybody, but I'm a man of 60. And when Doc said, let's look at your testosterone, and it was a frighteningly bad number, he simply said, I can fix it. I feel so much stronger physically. I feel so much sharper mentally. I feel just, I guess, probably younger is probably the best word. If you feel off, if you're over 40, your testosterone's declining. Send a message, sign up for the free consultation. You need to get some lab work to find out exactly where you're at. I'm proof it works. You owe it to yourself and your significant other to be the best you. www.agelessforever.net. Send a message, take the consultation, be better.
All right, we're back. 45, 21, and 8, 98 points. As we said before, they're up 5 points on LA, up 7 on Edmonton. They're third in the West, fourth in the league, right? Dallas is a couple of 4 points ahead of them, I think, and it's only because they have more wins and less overtime losses.
And we had to explain to somebody in the press box last night that Dallas could finish 10 points ahead of the Golden Knights. They won't have home ice advantage over Vegas in the playoffs.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
I'm just saying.
I know.
Because there's some people who might think it's the NBA.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And in hockey, the division winner, in this case, would be the Golden Knights, will have home ice at least for the first and second round.
They have home ice against everybody but
Winnipeg.
But Winnipeg.
Right.
Because they're a division winner.
Yes, and they have more points.
Right.
Now, I don't know the numbers in the East, or I don't know if they make the Stanley. I don't fucking care. Let's worry about that.
We'll worry about that 5 episodes down the road.
We're hoping it's
right,
Florida.
So yes, we are. Either Florida team will be A-OK with me.
Yeah.
I mean, I would certainly prefer to go to Miami.
Tampa's nice. Ybor City.
I'd rather go to Miami. Trust me, you'd rather go to Miami. Based on my experience 2 years ago at the finals.
The elbow room.
Anyway, if we start talking about stuff no one else is ever going to get a chance to, people are going to turn this silly podcast off.
Fuck you guys. What are you doing?
Vegas needs to close the show.
Yes, they do.
Right? No more fucking around. No more giving away charity points to Buffalo and Detroit.
Right.
They need to get this job done, and it starts with a stiff test tomorrow night when the Peg comes to town.
Yeah, I think you get a bounce back from this team tomorrow night. I think they will look back at last night's game and say, we never should have lost to this team.
That's the funny thing. We've sort of talked about it. Look, I'm doing my Willie Ramirez imitation right now. We talk about this team is like, I don't want to say they're like an emotional child, but they realize when they fuck up.
Yes, they do.
And they internally say to themselves, we're better than that.
Well, the response after the Detroit and Buffalo games.
Exactly.
They turned that into a 6-game win streak.
So this game, and listen, I'm jazzed to see the game tomorrow night. I thought I was jazzed about yesterday, and I was wrong. But, the Peg has an outside chance of catching Washington.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would want the President's Cup, but hey, God bless them if that's what they think they want and they can have it. We certainly will get the Vezina Trophy winner.
Yes.
We know we're getting Hellebuck, and we're way past the measuring stick games. right? Those are in the mid to 3/4 pole, stuff like that. But this is one of those games where I expect to see playoff hockey from the first drop of the puck because Winnipeg wants to make a statement.
Yeah.
Clearly, Winnipeg wants to make a statement because, as we talked about in 104, they haven't really gone through any adversity yet this year, right?
Right. They have
not had any serious major injuries. They started out, 15-1, something like that. They haven't had more than a 3 or a 4 game. They haven't really, nobody's really pressed them yet. And I think that, we won't do predictions for a while yet, but that makes them a little vulnerable in my eyes.
Well, and they got their ass kicked last night. So
yeah,
they're going to come in wanting to play because you don't want to go 0-2 against Vegas and LA.
Not unlike Tampa last week, who got mollywomped in Utah the night before they came here. And then they came out.
Then they went home and destroyed Utah.
Right.
Like 4 days later.
So I think that we have 8 games left in the season. We know that. These games, besides positionally, for positioning in the standings, they're not gonna catch Winnipeg, right? Unless Winnipeg loses every game out, and that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
They're too good a club for that. If the Golden Knights hold serve and do what they're supposed to do, I see a path. Right? The Central is going to be significantly more difficult to navigate than the Pacific. If this goes chalk the way we expect it to go chalk, right?
Right.
LA and Edmonton, they could beat the piss out of each other for 7 games and a whole bunch of overtimes.
Fine with me.
Right? So we can safely assume that Winnipeg probably will have the easiest of the first rounds.
Yeah, I mean, right now,
right.
well, listen, I don't
if they
know
get St. Louis, maybe,
yeah.
But by comparison to what that Dallas-Colorado series has the potential to be.
And the other series in the Pacific.
Right. So if you think about it, if you're the Golden Knights brain trust and you've got your board out there and you're like shuffling the pieces around, there's a reason the Golden Knights might be favored to get out of the West because there's no way that Dallas and Colorado aren't going to beat the dog snot out of each other.
Right.
It's impossible.
Right.
And we say that Winnipeg we'll give Winnipeg getting through the first one. Okay? Just for the for the sake of this argument.
That
right?
second round matchup.
That second round argument, you're going to have a team that's fully tuned up, right? After a 7-game, whether it's Dallas or Colorado, right? They're going to be fully jacked up, ready for Winnipeg, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And if they get through Winnipeg, then you got wear and tear because you've been through Jesus, English. You have been through 2 wars in your preliminary rounds of the playoffs
before you get to the heavyweight,
right? Whereas the
championship fight,
whereas the Golden Knights, in theory, we'll call it St. Louis or Minnesota because we don't think Vancouver or Calgary is going to get there.
Calgary 4 points behind or 6 points behind, a game in hand on the Wild. I don't think they're going to catch them.
I don't think they're going to catch them. Yeah. So that second round matchup, you look at the Golden Knights versus the winner of the Edmonton LA series. Golden Knights could have 4 days off before the series starts, right? If they get done in 5, right? I just see lots of scenarios where you were prophetic when you said every year the Golden Knights have won the division, they made the Western Conference Finals.
Right. There's a reason for that.
And I see it's not even a stretch to me. I see the path certainly to the Western Conference Finals. And I think they're a better team than Edmonton up and down.
Yeah, I do too.
And as much as LA I think is troubling, the problem with LA is, they say before you can win anything, you have to lose it. And they haven't been that deep in the dance, right? They haven't gone through the absolute pressure cooker.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the road that the Golden Knights took to win the Stanley Cup.
Exactly.
They lose in the final year 1. They get fucked over in San Jose year 2. Year 3 is the COVID year where they play in the bubble. They go all the way to a Game 7 in the Western Conference Final, and they lose to Pete DeBoer. The following year is the 56-game season. They lose in the Western Conference,
whatever it was,
whatever
the
they
Montreal
called it,
year,
to the Canadiens.
right?
The following year, they missed the playoffs. There's a lot of fucking heartbreak and adversity in there before you get to that Stanley Cup year. And I'm not going to play the game with these assholes who say, oh, it was given to them. Listen, they got there, they earned it on the ice, and they had to taste
The bitter to
the
get
bitterness
to the,
of
bitter to
losing
get to the sweet.
and heartbreak.
Yeah.
And while it's not the same comparison, it was explained to me yesterday why Jack Eichel's not going to win the Selke Award, because that's generally an award where you have to be a finalist before you win it.
Right.
And it makes sense. So it's just the way it is, right? Like nobody argues, oh, well, that guy wasn't a great defensive player or great defensive forward. But people argue against the Hart, you know? So the point is, I think for the Kings, listen, they could go on a run. I mean, the St. Louis Blues did it. But that was a really strange year. And I mean, their adversity and heartbreak was being a terrible team when you fired Mike Yeo. And these guys, you know, the whole Gloria thing, they're in a bar in Philadelphia and that fucking song comes on, Laura Branigan, and it completely changes the season. That's a one-off.
And the other thing is, I don't think the Kings goaltending holds up.
No,
Right? I mean, I don't think that and listen, Andrzej Kopitar, I mean, there's a couple of the, you know, holdovers from the good old days when they won the cup a couple of times. But this iteration of the Kings,
it's a completely different team.
Hasn't spent enough time under the immense pressure of the Stanley Cup playoffs like the Golden Knights have for basically the last 3 years.
I mean, you've got obviously Drew Doughty is a guy who is capable of and there are some holdovers, but
yeah, there are guys who can drag.
Were really young at the time too.
Right.
I'm with you on the goalies. I just don't know. You know, I think that's an interesting discussion because I think we talked about Hellebuck needing to prove it in the playoffs, and maybe this is the year he does. But then you look at the guys in I don't believe in Minnesota's goalies.
No.
I don't believe in Edmonton's goalies.
That's a joke to even say that.
I don't know if I believe in Colorado's. Well, though they've been good, but
they've benefited from a juggernaut in front of them.
Yes,
right.
It's a different.
I mean, Mackenzie Blackwood is not.
Well, that's it. And Blackwood is a guy. He was okay in New Jersey. Then he went to San Jose, which was basically like a
suicide mission, right?
You know, and now he gets traded to Colorado. He gets second life. But you know what? The playoffs are a completely different animal, and it's feast or famine. And we'll find out about Mackenzie Blackwood real early in Colorado's, maybe not the first round, but we're going to find out how good he is in the second round.
Oh no, we're going to find out. We're going to find out game 1, period 1.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
And well,
honestly,
the thing is, that team, they could come out and they could be up. Well, maybe not. You know what? Not against Dallas.
Not against Dallas.
And they don't want to get to a game 7 because Pete, first of all,
undefeated in game 7s.
Undefeated in game 7s, but Pete seems to know how to slow down Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah. Showed it here.
Well, and he showed it the year that the Sharks.
Yeah.
I think, was it the year that they beat Vegas? I think they played Colorado in the next round, and they ended up.
Yeah, Pete's got the kryptonite for that.
He's listen. Pete's a good coach. He's been around a long time. I hope he wins a Stanley Cup one day, just not this year.
I don't want him to win a Stanley Cup.
I like Pete.
No, listen.
I always had
thought
good.
Prickly Pete was always funny.
He was never prickly with us.
Well, but I mean, he was a couple times. But anyway, he can win a Stanley Cup after I'm too old to remember that I'm covering the Golden Knights.
When you got your drool cup.
Yeah, exactly. but not until then. Before we go on, let's get a word in from Joe and Boris over at the Marathon Law Group.
I'm here with Joe Riccio from Marathon Law Group. And Joe, one of the things I hear all the time when people are in accidents is they don't want to go after the other driver because they feel bad about going after the sweet old lady who may have hit them or the young kid who just got his driver's license. They don't want it to go on his record or whatever. So why is that a mistake?
Well, I'll tell you, Chris, it's actually a common event. We get people that will come in here and say, well, I feel bad. The person was so nice after the accident. They came over to me and they asked if I was okay. And meanwhile, that is, the humanity side of it. The other side of it, though, is that person's not going to be paying for your lost wages at work. They're not going to be paying for the damages to your vehicle. They're not going to be paying for your medical damages. And so what I often tell people in those situations, Chris, is that you're not going after the little old lady or the person who hit you. You're actually filing a claim against the insurance company that is associated with the person that hit you, and they are the ones that will be bearing and fighting the claim, not that person.
So just for clarification, if I'm in an accident and the person who hits me is sweet and nice and I feel bad about it, if I sue them, it's not coming out of their pocket in most cases.
That is correct. It would not. You're not taking their house. You're not taking their car. They have an insurance policy for a reason, and that would be what you would be dealing with, is the policy and the insurance company.
All right, let's you brought up Jack and the Selke and the Hart.
Right.
That I'm conflicted about that. I don't have any doubt that Jack is one of the best 5 players in the NHL. I'm not being a homer, right?
No, I echo those sentiments.
Right?
I agree.
He's gonna be a 100-point guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be in the top 10 for sure in plus minus.
He's probably going to have 30 goals.
But the point that was made is those guys that are winning the Hart and stuff like that, they have multiple 100-point seasons. And but you know what? I don't think that you can take that into account.
Well,
I
Taylor
think
Hall won the award.
Right.
What was it, 2018 he won the award?
Didn't Corey Perry win one?
I think he did, yeah.
That piece of fecal matter. I mean, I feel, listen, Jack doesn't give a shit.
No, I don't think he does.
Right? Someone's going to have to tell Jack he got 100 points.
Yeah. Because
right? I mean, obviously the whole crowd's going to tell him.
Yeah.
But he didn't wake up. He doesn't look at the board and say 95, 96,
I'm on 99 points tonight. If I get a point, he's not that guy.
He's not wound that way. But in my opinion, the Hart should be the best player on one of the best teams that is the example of all 200 feet of the ice and every situation. The most complete. I mean, they have the Rocket Richard for scoring.
Right.
And
I think the Art Ross is another one of those.
Right. And they have the Ted Lindsay, which is the one that the players vote on.
Right. Most outstanding player.
But if you think about the body of work this year for Jack, right? 30 goals, call it 104, whatever it is. He's going to be plus 30 something,
yeah.
Right? He'll be in the top 5, right? Kills penalties. Runs power play 1 of the number 1 power play in the NHL.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how you can not at least give him the nom. Right? But he's not going to get it.
No, he's not. He's not going to get it.
He's not going to get it.
Because McKinnon is having a really good season. But I would argue that Eichel's having maybe not as good of a season, but when you factor in the 200-foot game, I would say he's having as good of a season. Offensively, he's not having as good of a season. But I think
and he probably never will.
Right.
He's not going to be
Draisaitl.
No.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to be, and because moreover than
he doesn't need to be.
He doesn't exactly right. He does not need, right? We saw, and here's the perfect example. Hertl goes down, Eichel starts scoring.
Yeah.
So he has it. There's no doubt it's in his pocket, right? I'll bet you anything you want to bet. Bruce didn't have to go to him and tell him we need you to score more.
No, he took the onus on himself.
He
I'm
looked
sure.
around and said, our number one goal scorer's out. I'm Jack.
I need to.
Okay, boys, here's the rope.
Yep.
We're going.
I'm going to put you on my back now.
Right. And he went and they don't need to be dragged into anything.
No, and listen, all you need to do is look at the way he performed in the playoffs 2 years ago.
Right.
He didn't win the Conn Smythe.
He got my vote, even though I didn't have one.
But he certainly had a case to win the Conn Smythe.
Of course.
And I think that what separates Jack from, and listen, I don't know Nathan McKinnon. I don't cover the Avalanche. I don't know Nikita Kucherov. I don't cover the Lightning. I don't know much about other than what I read and hear.
Sasha Barkov.
Well, I like Sasha Barkov, but he's a quiet guy. He's not really like, maybe he's a lot more vocal in the room, which is why he wears a letter. But I think with Jack is probably a lot more like Sasha Barkov, where I think Jack is vocal when he needs to be.
I bet Jack's funnier.
He probably is, yeah.
I bet.
But I think Jack is probably more of a lead by example kind of guy. And that's not to say Stone isn't. Stone also has the emotional investment and, the guys feed off of his emotion. And Jack celebrates. He has his "Are you not entertained?" celebration. But I think maybe, and maybe he learned this at his time in Buffalo. Maybe when he was young and he was a captain of the Sabres, he was a vocal leader. I don't picture Jack being the guy on the ice who's yelling at guys, and like we've never seen that, whereas
he's too busy being Jack.
Yeah, but he has this quiet leadership in him where I think, well, if Jack Eichel's doing this and he's an unbelievable fucking player, I need to do it. Like, I bet you if you talk to a guy like Brett Howden and you ask him about Jack Eichel and his leadership, he'll probably tell you he's the best player on the team. We think he's one of the best players in the league. And if he's out there chasing pucks down the ice, if he's out there back checking on a 2-on-1, my ass needs to be doing that too. And the guys who are in the discussion for the Hart, Draisaitl, McKinnon, Kucherov, Matthews, they don't do that. You don't see that from those guys. You see it from Jack. And that's what separates Jack from those guys. His scoring, as you mentioned, it's never going to be the number one guy in the league. He's never going to have 140 points.
If he has to have 140 points, the team's in big trouble.
Yes. This team wins because their best players
spread.
Not only spread, but their role players follow the example set by their best players. Zach Whitecloud follows Brady McNabb and Alex Pietrangelo. Noah Hannafin follows Shea Theodore. Right? Like this is the setup. Caden Korzak comes in. They put him with, who do they play him with most of the time? Brady McNabb. Why? Because Brady McNabb is a guy who is going to show a young player the right way to play the game, the way to be a professional.
And he's exactly predictable.
And
you always know exactly what
you're getting.
Not what you're getting, what he's going to do.
Yes.
Because he's always going to make the right play.
And he is a good communicator.
Right.
Everyone says he's a great and the funny thing is, you talk to Brady McNabb, he has gotten a lot better. Right, when he was with the Kings, he was probably never asked to go out and speak with the media.
Right,
but the progression he has made speaking to the media from year one to now, like Brady McNabb is a seasoned guy with the media. You talk to him after practice, and you could talk to him about anything, and he'll tell you anything. Like I remember one time I asked him to diagnose one of his hip checks, and he broke it down. Like he told me, I got to basically explained step by step on how to deliver a big hit. Clean. So this team, they have a lot of leaders. Like what I find funny is, and I know when we go in the locker room, you listen a lot. You listen to everything they say. And I can't remember who it was now last night. Oh, Nick Waugh. He was asked about Brandon Saad. And he talked about, well, he sets an example. Brandon Saad is a guy who's been on the team, what, a month and a half?
20 games, I think.
And he immediately commanded the respect of guys who've been on this team for 4 or 5 years.
And then the cool thing about that was we got to talk to Brandon Saad before we got to talk to Nick Waugh, and Brandon Saad talked about the same thing every single player that comes here. The first word out of their mouth?
Culture.
Yeah. Right? He said, the guys took me right in.
Mm-hmm.
And
he held himself, and he wasn't afraid to hold the team accountable in that second period.
Listen, I didn't know much. I mean, I saw him, obviously. I'm aware that he's been in the NHL for a long time. He was in Chicago for a long time. He is a consummate professional.
I like, and you know what? You know who he reminds me of on the ice? It's going to sound crazy. He wears number 20. He reminds me of Chandler Stevenson. The speed,
he's a lot more offensively gifted than Chandler Stevenson.
The speed, the way he's able to get through the neutral zone.
He drives the game.
Yeah. And like you, I didn't get to watch. I just remember he had one playoff run where he had like 6 goals.
Out of control.
He was so good. And he was with I think that was the year the Blackhawks played the Golden Knights in the bubble. Brandon Saad was that good. But they bring a guy like that in, and he immediately fits right in with the culture, fits right in with what this team expects and wants to do. And Nick Waugh, who has been on this team, I think
almost day one.
Yeah, pretty close
to day one.
And he's talking about the leadership and the example that Brandon Saad sets, and how playing with him makes him a better hockey player. Like, that's what separates the Golden Knights from a lot of these other teams. And I'm not just talking about teams that stink. I'm talking about teams that are good.
Listen, this team rows, they all row the same way.
Yep. There's no outliers.
Right.
You either get in line or you're shown the door.
Well, you know, that's actually, we've already done our 2 commercials. So let's make the transition to what you and I both weren't sure if it was an April Fool's joke or not.
Yes.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
The Golden Knights signed Trevor Connolly.
Yes.
He was the 18th or 19th.
19th
he was their first round pick.
Yes.
And
middle to late part of the first round,
which is about as high as they're ever going to pick. We think. But young Mr. Connolly comes with some baggage. Right?
Lots of it. Yeah.
You know, this is not, and we're not going into it. We're not assholes, and we're not going to dredge up what he did or what he may have said.
Yeah, you can find it if you really want to.
But there have been questions about his character. We'll just say that. Right? Because talent-wise, I can tell you conclusively, he might be, I said conclusively, and then I said might. That makes no fucking sense. I can tell you that, in my opinion, he's likely the most offensively gifted player that they've ever drafted.
Which is saying a lot, because they've drafted some guys who.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds funny, but Nick Suzuki was a phenomenal goal scorer in juniors. Nick Hague was
40 in juniors.
Was a big time goal scorer in juniors. Everything I hear about Trevor Connolly, at least from the hockey side of things, is he is quite possibly he would have been a top 5 pick.
Not would have. He 100%. He a top 3 pick probably if he wasn't him.
Yeah, the kid from the Blackhawks draft, who's already playing for them, by the way.
Right.
And Celebrini. He might have been the 3rd kid taken.
Yeah.
And from the hockey standpoint, everything I hear about him, and we got to watch him a little bit in the World Juniors. I don't know how much stock you put into that.
He was good.
Not only was he good, he was the youngest player on Team USA, and
he played big minutes.
Yes,
and I think he had 4 or 5 points. Had a big assist,
game-winning goal in the semifinals. He had the assist to set it up. So my assumption, and this is obvious, a lot can change between now and next September, October. I think he makes the team out of camp.
I said that to Paul yesterday, and he told me I was full of shit.
Listen,
There's going to be some people that aren't here, and we're not going down that negative road. But there are going to be spots open on the roster, come camp.
Yeah,
and Bruce has talked about one of the big differences, or not big differences. I'm sorry. One of the similarities between this year and 2 years ago is that there were a lot of open spots in camp. Last year, the roster was basically set when they got there.
The same team
from the win.
Yeah.
So there are going to be 3 or 4 spots open.
Right.
And I believe, I got a source, right? I know somebody that known Trevor Connolly many, many years, a guy that I went to school with, my dear friend, Dr. Brian Homer. I believe I think he's going to make the team out of camp because he's a bona fide fucking scorer.
We're talking about a guy who, as we said, probably is a top 5 pick. Those guys, they're in the league very early. You look at a lot of the early picks in the drafts, these guys aren't fucking around in juniors.
Well, look at all the kids that just finished their college thing. Well, the kid make the debut for the Rangers tonight, I think, or yesterday.
I think Calgary had a guy recently.
Snuggerud or something in St. Louis. There's the Ryan Leonard from the U.S. Juniors made his debut. He is that type of player. I don't think they necessarily need him in the lineup next year.
Right.
I think that he forces them
to put him on the team.
I think he's that good. And
there was no bullshit at Providence this past season.
He's working with Will Nickel,
who is
he's the guru of that stuff.
He's time tested. Will Nickel is certainly. There's a reason Will Nickel's been with this organization since before they were an organization.
Would you tell everybody who Will Nickel is, since only you and I know probably on the podcast?
I don't know what his exact title is, but he's
player development or something like that.
The number one guy who he goes and watches all of these players that they draft, whether they're in fucking Sweden or in Finland or
he's responsible for molding them into professionals,
or in Kelowna.
Right.
This guy racks up more frequent flyer miles than pilots. That's how much time he spends traveling. And if the Golden Knights have invested Will Nickel, first of all, they invested a first-round pick in this kid, so they obviously believe in him. And this organization, I think it's starts with Mr. Foley. He's an Army guy. He went to the United States Military Academy. One of the number one things is accountability and looking out for your brothers. And this is an organization that demands accountability. There's a reason why there's players who were good players and were shown the door. They didn't hold themselves accountable, and they didn't hold the team accountable.
The Knights way.
That's the way it is.
Right.
And if this, and I don't know this for a fact, but my belief is there was a contingent of of executives and high-ranking people with the Golden Knights that spoke to every single person in this kid's life, from his college coach to his mother and father to
teammates, his kids. Sure.
And they know what they have in this kid. And if this guy, as good as he is, if he is not fully vested, they don't care.
If he's not fully vested, he'll be the next first round pick that the Golden Knights trade at the deadline.
And that's not saying that, because Peyton Krebs is an NHL player, and it's not to say that he was shit, because he wasn't. He was good. He was a good player. He was a good kid, worked his ass off. But they moved him because this is a team that will always look to improve. They're never satisfied with the status quo.
I agree.
And this kid has a ton of talent. They traded a Vezina-winning goalie for nothing. They don't give a fuck. If he's not on board with the Golden Knights way, and he doesn't fully invest into the culture, he'll be gone.
I think that,
but I believe
that
he's going to get it.
I believe that. I won't even say Mark Stone. I believe that Keegan Colasar and Braden McNabb
and Zach Whitecloud.
and Zach Whitecloud. You're going to get the leadership from Eichel and Stone and Pietrangelo. That's unquestionable. Yeah. But I believe that this kid is going to make his bones when he passes through the Keegan Colasar exam.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And between Keegan Colasar and Zach Whitecloud, that's a couple of no fuck around guys.
And that's a couple of guys who have gotten here the hard way.
And they're gonna show that young fella, Mr. Connolly, what it's going to take not only to be an NHL player, but to be an NHL player on arguably the premier franchise in the NHL. What it's going to take to be a Vegas Golden Knight. And it's really, the great intangible is it's up to him.
That's it.
Right?
It's
ultimately, at the end of the day, he laces him up, he puts on his cup and his helmet, and he has to go to work. But if he embraces it, okay, and he takes on the Knight's way, we'll call it, and they probably called it that, but we'll call it that for the sake of this conversation, he will easily be the best draft pick they've ever had. And that's saying a lot because Suzuki's captain of the Montreal Canadiens.
And he's a good player.
30 goals, right?
Yeah. Nick Suzuki is the one that I wish they would have been able to keep.
But he got patches, got a lot of goals.
Like I still look back and wish they would have been able to move Cody Glass instead of Nick Suzuki.
Sure.
But
of course,
hindsight is 20/20.
Right.
Maybe Montreal was like, no, we don't like Glass. We want Suzuki.
I mean, I wish I wouldn't have eaten that whole large pizza yesterday, but
man, listen, you can't go wrong with a large pizza.
Right.
But
but
I'll end on this with Connolly.
Okay.
I don't have to like what's in his past.
Nobody.
But
it's a reference.
The thing is,
it's his. Listen,
it's in the past.
Everybody writes their book when they get here.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody has a past when they get here, right?
It's about the
things
future.
that they've done, things that they've said, tweets that they've made, little slap and tickle games they've played.
Yeah, but
the bottom line is
now.
When you get a Nevada driver's license and you are a Vegas Golden Knight and you put that crest on the front of your sweater over your head, what are you?
Yeah.
I mean, he's still a child.
Was he 18?
Maybe 19, maybe 9. He's a fucking child.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know a lot about how you grow up or what you did or didn't do when a child, but I was a fuck up as a child. And
I have a lawyer. So
I mean, the things that I did as a child, and you guys can reach out to my dad. He'll be happy to share all the fuck ups that I made as a kid. But I don't care about any of that. They know that, right?
Yeah.
They did exhaustive, like you said. They deep dived on that kid, and they said, you know what? We can make him a Golden Knight.
And if they do that,
it's going to be the best. It's going to be the biggest steal in the draft at 18 or 19.
And if they're successful, this kid is going to be unbelievably successful.
Yeah, he's a bona fide.
He's a potential star.
Yeah, he's a top line guy. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not middle six. He's not bottom six. He's a top line scorer. So welcome to Las Vegas, young Mr. Connolly.
I wonder if we'll see him before.
I think we might not see him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's in Henderson because Providence is long done.
They have in the past played college signings. Zach Whitecloud played his first ever NHL game.
What was that guy? Dugan, Jack Dugan, right?
Yeah, Jack
was fresh out. There's a little history of doing that.
Yeah,
I
would not be shocked
if he was in Henderson. I would fucking get my parole officer to allow me a 1-day pass to go to Henderson go to Henderson and watch the kid play. So that's it. We don't want to talk about the games. Everybody knows Winnipeg's coming to town. Marchessault is going to be here. There's going to be a tribute video. I'm not going to the game. I'll be in Florida on the beach working. Shitty, tough job I have. But I do want to ask you a very complicated question. We did this in the last episode.
Okay.
And I almost stumped you. Who has more? The combination of Akira Schmid wins in Henderson and Alexander Holtz goals
in Vegas.
No, combined.
Okay.
Or Paul Cotter.
Well,
Or did you research this
I'm
knowing
the
it
one,
was
I'm
coming?
the one who sent it to you. I texted it to you.
Well, we did. We did.
I told you.
We did the last one with Marchessault and Dorofeyev, right?
So I know for a fact that when you combine Henderson and Vegas with Akira Schmid wins,
It's three. It's three up.
It's those guys. But when you count NHL goals, and we don't have any, I think Akira Schmid played like 3 minutes
Yeah.
for the Golden Knights this season.
Right. And he's got 9 wins. I think,
9 wins in Henderson. Holtz had 3 goals in Vegas.
Yeah.
Paul Cotter has 16 goals.
Yeah.
So
And yes, we're going to slurp on Paul Cotter because he's a friend of the fucking podcast and one of the coolest guys that you'll ever get a chance to talk to if you're lucky enough to get a chance to talk to him.
And I grew up a Devils fan, so I root for him.
So, and while we're slurping him before we get out of here, set the Devils team record a couple of nights ago, most hits in a season.
Yeah.
232 hits.
I'm guessing that statistic was not around when Scott Stevens was playing for the Devils.
Well,
although he was more known for big hits.
Right. We're not saying thunderous hits. We're talking volume.
Yeah. So congratulations, Paul. I think that's a statistic that you should be proud of.
Happy for you.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
Just happy and that's why the Devils wanted Paul Cotter. They wanted the physicality.
They got
16 goals. Listen,
surprise.
If he gets 4 goals and gets to 20, what a fucking great deal for the Devils. They got the guy who delivers the hits, adds the physicality, and they got 20 goals out of. Listen, 16, that's already
16 is about 8 or 9 more than they thought they were going to.
Yes.
They thought they were going to get.
Yeah. So the trade will be judged in a few years, but I think it's going to work out for New Jersey. All right.
I'm happy for Paul.
Yeah,
that's it.
It'll work out for.
I'm happy
for the
Paul.
Devils,
and I'm happy episode 105 is over because we were all over the fucking map today. Let's thank our sponsors: the Las Vegas Advisor at LasVegasAdvisor.com, Dr. John Pierce at AgelessForever.net, and Boris and Joe Riccio. Boris and Joe Riccio at MarathonLawGroup.com. They were the sponsor of 3 of the 4 golden giveaways for tickets. Want to congratulate the winners again. It looks like we're going to do 2 more episodes before the beginning of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Knock on fake carbon fiber. Episode 107, we're going to have some version of a special guest. We don't want to get your hopes up. It's not going to be a player.
No, we don't know who it's going to be yet.
We don't know who it's going to be, but it's going to be somebody who
we've gotten some positive.
We apparently we do this pretty okay, and people are okay with coming on our podcast.
Important people,
yeah, real people, not like people who run certain Facebook groups who said the only way we could post in their group is if we had them on the podcast. Fuck you, Ron. Oh, sorry.
I didn't know that was. I don't know who that is. But
yeah,
okay.
He runs a huge. Anyway, we're not going to get into that, but I'll say that one more time. Fuck you, Ron. You'll never be on this podcast until I'm dead, and then it's up to Chap.
And I don't know you, but you ain't coming on with me either.
So thanks everybody. It's been a wild ride. It's only going to get crazier. We'll be back next week, and the week after we're going to do a big playoff preview show. I don't think we're going to do an end of season report card this year because you guys have been watching it along with us since September. We know what the Vegas Golden Knights are all about. Listen, we hope to be doing this all the way through June and be able to give you some unbelievable content from the Stanley Cup Finals. But until then, thanks so much for your loyalty. Thanks for your likes and your subscribes and your comments and all the things that you do that sort of validate what Chris and I do every week. And that will wrap up episode number 105. We are out of here. We'll see you again next week.